Alrighty, welcome back to the Cottom Customs YouTube channel. We are back today working on this 1972 Chevy Chevelle. Main goal for this whole episode is, you remembered in the last episode, we got the quarters completely welded in, so those are finished. And then all of the back, the wheel wells and the trunk floor and everything is completely welded. What's left is we have to cut out the firewall and weld in the new firewall, and then that will finish up pretty much all of our metalwork in the front. We're also replacing these body mount brackets here. So after those couple things are done up here, all of the metalwork will be done in the front of the Chevelle and pretty much on the entire body. There are still some things here and there that we're going to do, but that'll be in a later episode. So after we get the body finished up, we're actually going to move to the frame of the Chevelle. We're going to get all of our QA1 suspension unboxed and mounted on our frame. Okay, so first things first, before we get to the firewall, we actually have to move these braces right here. I'm actually going to move them back underneath my pinch welds right here. That way it can hold the whole front weight of the car, because this is what's holding my body right now. So I'm going to get those cut off, get them moved, placed back here. So we're going to be able to start cutting away these brackets first, and then we're going to start to clean up all of these seams, get all the seam sealer gone, drill out all of our spot welds, and pull off this firewall. So that is our new firewall right there. I think it's going to look super good with it on there. So let's get started and let's get this thing going.
It's mixed on the beat.
Alrighty, so the supports are now cut off. They're right here. I'm going to be reusing those later when we get all of the new stuff on, because I have to be able to move this. So what I did was I got these jack stands that I made, and I got little pieces of 1x1 and cut it exactly so it fit perfectly right on that pinch weld. Did that to the other side too, and now that is pretty much holding the whole front weight of the car. So I'm gonna be able to cut these off and cut my whole firewall off, do all of that modifications just like this. The only downside to not building mounts like I did in the back like that is I'm actually not gonna be able to move the car until I finish the firewall, which is fine. I'll get this firewall done hopefully this week, and then we'll be able to move the car around again and get the Chevelle back on the frame. So I'm gonna start by cleaning up all of this seam sealer and see exactly what is part of my firewall and what isn't. And then as soon as I know exactly what needs to be cut out, I'm going to start cutting out all of my spot welds and removing this from the car. Alrighty, so now that I got that main part cut out, you can see I stayed about 2 inches away from the edge of my firewall. So I'm going to go around now and I'm going to drill all of the spot welds and clean up all of my edges. That way I can prep my new piece to go on. It's best to do it this way. Just try and get as big as a piece out as you can, and then go around and finish the rest instead of trying to do it all at once. So let's get started on cleaning up all of our edges, and then we will be ready to get this firewall installed.
Slop production.
Okay, so the firewall is completely cut out, and that is how it's looking right now. Now, I had a couple of issues with some rust over here, also over here. This side wasn't terrible, but then this side right here, this whole bottom part was just rusted on. That was kind of a pain to get off, but now it's all the way off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean all of this, all the areas where my new firewall is going to sit. We're going to clean everything, and then we're going to prep our firewall and throw it on, just mock up to see how everything fits. And if everything fits good, we'll pull it back off and then prep it for final weld. Okay, so firewall is mocked up into place. I got it really tight up against here. It's good up on top. On the sides, it's really good. When I clamp it, it'll pull all that tighter, and then I'll be able to weld it really good. And you can see even on the underneath, it looks really nice. Like it's super tight all the way along. We had to push this whole thing this way just to get it in and looking good. So the only problem that we have is this firewall is just a little bit off, and I think it's the firewall. I don't think it's the floor, because the floor matches this side. So what I'm gonna do is, because it's good all the way over here, I'm just gonna do a slit in this and suck this together and then weld it up into place and re-weld that slit. So now I'm gonna go around and mark all of my edges so that I know right where to clean and prep and zinc primer, and also get all my holes drilled, prep this entire firewall. Then we're gonna get it back into place and we're gonna weld it up. Okay, so after all that prep work, the edges of our firewall are ready for welding. And we also got all of the holes drilled all the way across the top, down the sides, all the way down here. Now all of this is ready for welding. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this mocked up back where I had it, get all of my screws put in pretty much the same way I've been doing the rest of the car. And then once I have everything mocked up, we are going to final weld this firewall in, and that will finish the last piece of major metalwork on this 72 Chevelle. So let's get started.
It's mixed on the beat.
So the firewall is finally all the way welded up. Also went along the inside and welded all of the firewall to the floor. I also ran a nice bead all along this edge just because I want this to be really strong and hold on those edges. I'll show you the bottom of the floor right now. You can see underneath, got plenty of penetration. So you can see right here, this is where I had to slice it, and then I pushed it up and welded it back up, and now it looks really nice, has a really nice fit all the way around. And that is pretty much it for the firewall. So this concludes all of the heavy metalwork. I've got a couple little pieces to weld. You can see I also patched in this rust hole that was right here. Now I did notice on this other side right here, it looks like we may have some rust going along this, so I'm gonna have to clean this out, see what's going on here, and then probably gonna have to do some final rust repairs right here. Okay, so now that I got that piece of rust fixed right there, I got that all patched in. There's a little bit of rust up here on top of the cowl. I decided I'm gonna wait until I get the car in the frame to do that, because I have to make a lot of modifications to our firewall when we do our vintage air kit. So I'm gonna wait on that. I also went ahead and got my old trunk out of the garbage and fit it on, because I have this really weird curve here, and this trunk doesn't line up with this new panel. So I wanted to see if anything moved, and that's why this didn't fit, but I put the old trunk on and it fit up perfectly with that. So I'm probably just gonna have to cut this top piece and make it fit the curvature of the trunk. But that'll be when we do our final metalwork on the Chevelle. So now I'm gonna get the Chevelle body ready to go outside, because I'm gonna clean all of this mess up that I made, and the frame is actually gonna come right here because we're gonna start the framework next. So what I have to do down here is I'm gonna jack up the rear and move this mount right here so that it supports the back. And then I'm gonna grab that mount and move it to the front. And then I'll get these jack stands out of the way, and we'll be able to carefully roll this car all the way outside and get the frame moved right here. Okay, so now that I got the Chevelle off the jack stands, I just put some pieces of wood down and ratchet strapped it to my cart. That way, when we hit bumps, this won't fall off or do anything crazy. So now I'm gonna clean up the shop a little bit. I'm gonna get everything pulled outside, reorganize everything, put all the tools away. Because we are officially done with the body, so now we are going to rearrange everything, tidy everything up, and get the frame in, and we're gonna start tearing apart that frame.
Mixlab Production.
Okay, so we got the Chevelle body inside, the Blazer's just outside right here, but the frame is ready to be worked on. So there's a lot of disassembly that I have to do, Get rid of this old booster because we're not using it. Get rid of all of the brake lines, fuel lines, because we're gonna be redoing all of that. This is also garbage. We have a brand new core support. And then after that, we actually have a bracing kit that's gonna go from here to here that I'm gonna weld in. It looks really nice. We're excited to get that on. But for now, we are going to get everything disassembled, get the frame jacked up on jack stands, get the wheels removed, because we actually have a brand new QA1 suspension setup that's gonna go on this 72 Chevelle. I'm a huge fan of QA1. They make an absolutely amazing product. They're a little pricey, but I think they are 100% worth it. And with how nice we're making this Chevelle already, we had to go QA1. So after we get all of our QA1 assembled, remember we're not gonna be painting or doing anything right now. This is just the mock-up stage. We're gonna completely disassemble everything one more time so that we can paint everything and then it will get final assembly. So let's get started on unboxing all of this and working on the frame. Okay, so the entire front suspension is finally disassembled. It's kind of crazy because the people who put this car together, none of the bolts were tied up front. So I'm really glad we decided to tear this all apart because everything was loose. But that is what the bare frame in the front looks like. So you can see these are all the pieces that I pulled off. Getting those springs out was a little sketchy just because there's no weight on this frame, so it kind of popped up a little bit. But now it is time to move to the rear. We're gonna get these braces off right here and then also get all of the links for the rear end off. And then we're gonna drop the rear end, pull all of these brake lines, and then remove the springs and the shocks. And then that should pretty much be it for the disassembly of the frame. Okay, so the frame is entirely disassembled. You see, I got the rear end off now. Cool thing about this rear end is I was spinning it. It's actually a posi, so it's probably a billet rear end. We're gonna have to take off the rear cover and make sure everything looks good in there. But other than that, super stoked about that. But you can see this frame is a little rusty, but it is gonna look so much better when we get it all the way painted. There is a ton of old suspension that we will no longer be using right here. But I think that's enough work for tonight. So tomorrow we're gonna come back and we're gonna start the assembly mock-up of all of our QA1 suspension. So it should be fun, but it's late tonight, so I'll see you guys in the morning. Peace out. Okay, so it's the next day. We got all of the suspension organized-ish and got all the tools cleaned up. So found this table. We are going to start to unbox all of our QA1 suspension and lay everything out. Okay, so everything is unboxed. There was actually a ton that came in this kit, but everything is looking absolutely gorgeous. Everything is pretty much getting replaced. And then I also unboxed our bracing kit for the frame. You can see, I gotta find a spot to put all that garbage, but it's all unboxed. So we're gonna start the mock-up on the frame now. Okay, so before we get our QA1 on the actual frame, we actually have to make some modifications to our front shocks. So you can see this is how they come stock, and it's for the way that the shocks mount on this lower control arm. You can see they both bolt right there on that lower piece. That's good because you can actually just order the coilovers from QA1 and just bolt them right up. But in our case, we have to swap those out because we have the lower control arms from QA1. So we're gonna pull both of these out. I already started this one. And then this is what gets installed. So we're gonna get started on that and then we should be able to start mocking everything up.
This is Mixlop.
So the front suspension is starting to get assembled. I swapped out that bushing on the bottom for this one, so now it's able to bolt up. And then off camera, I was trying to get started on my rear end, but I'm running into some issues. This is the bushing that goes right in here, and the problem is I cannot get this to press in for the life of me. So I'm gonna have to order a special tool to press these in, and then I will be able to get this rear end underneath the frame. So what I'm gonna do right now is actually finish up my front end and then probably just get the rear pieces mounted up on my rear end. I got some anti-seize so I could get my coilovers and everything assembled and put together, which is gonna be cool. And then once that tool comes in about a week or so, I'll be able to get that rear end underneath the frame. So let's work on getting this front end completely assembled, and then we'll move to the rear. So the front suspension is completely assembled. It looks absolutely amazing. Got the sway bar on, coilovers are in, and then we threw on all of the old brake stuff. We're actually gonna be replacing that all with Willwood. We just haven't ordered it yet, but that'll be on the way, and then we'll swap all that old ugly stuff out. So now that the wheels and tires are on, it is time to move to the back. I'm gonna get it mocked up as much as I can, and then go from there. Okay, so the rear suspension is pretty much done. I am absolutely loving the way that that looks. QA1's really nice because they make everything bolt in. So like if you don't have a welder and if you don't have welding experience, you can actually just get this kit and completely bolt it in. So it has these 4 little brackets that all bolt together. You do have to drill a lot of holes. So I used this hole here, and then I had to drill 2 holes back here on this side. And then you also have to drill a hole up here. But all the other holes are there, and it uses all the factory stuff mostly. So we're gonna cut these old spring mounts off just because you don't need them anymore. But everything is looking absolutely amazing back here. So all we have left to do is these 2 little bars go from here to here. And then we have to get the rear sway bar installed, and then that will finish up the whole QA1 suspension install. Okay, so I got this rear sway bar installed. It was pretty easy. That side gave me a little bit of a hard time, but other than that, everything is installed. I also got these front bars installed, and everything is on and where it should be. Wheels are on, and it is on the ground. It looks really good, especially from back here. Imagine looking underneath the car. Yeah, that looks freaking awesome. Especially with some wider tires, it's gonna look really nice. That is it for the mock-up of the QA1. Okay, so you can see I got the shop completely cleaned out. All the old suspension parts are in the back of the truck. I still have to hook up my steering because I have to move this frame around, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt if my wheels are not facing the same direction. So I'm just gonna get that hooked up for now, get my steering box thrown back on, even though we're probably gonna replace it. But after I do that, it will be time to start working on this frame bracing kit. I'm gonna get it all thrown up on the table right here. That way we can see exactly what we got, and then we will get started. Alrighty, so this is the bracing kit for the 72 Chevelle from SpeedTech Performance. So we're gonna start off by welding in these pieces. These pieces just go right here. I'm actually gonna have to straighten this a little bit because it's a little banged up, but I'm gonna get that straightened, and then this has to be completely cut off because see how this goes straight and then it kind of comes in a little bit? We have to cut that perfectly flush so that this piece will be able to slide up here just like that, and it'll get welded in just like that. So that will be the first part of this. We are going to get these pieces cut off on both sides. We're going to get that bottom flange straight, and then we're going to start to mock these pieces up. Behind the plates that we weld in, I'm going to clean really good, and then we're going to rust seal inside of here. And then after that, we're going to get these pieces mocked up and tacked into place. So let's get started. Okay, so started to get that bracing kit in, and it looks really nice so far. So I had to go in and cut that whole entire top of this off. That way it would fit flush. I also did the same thing on this side. And then I had to beat some of this down just because it was so high up and so smashed. When people jack the car up, it would bend this. So I beat it all down, and now I'm gonna have to clamp it all up tight when I start to weld it. That way we have a nice even gap all the way along the bottom of this. Same thing on this side. So got a lot of work ahead of me. Okay, but before we do any welding, now that I have these fit up, I'm gonna pull these off. We're gonna clean the insides of these rails, and then we're gonna rust seal the inside and the back of these new metal panels. That way they do not rust. Okay, so I rust sealed everything on the inside and then also these pieces here. So I'm gonna let that dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna come in, we're gonna get that clamped on, and then we're gonna start doing our welds. And then I also came around here. I got all my front steering components installed. They are just mocked up, nothing's tight, just so I can roll this around and also to make sure everything clears once we get our motor in. Okay, so it's the next day. So these pieces are dry now. We're gonna get them thrown on there, and then we're gonna weld in that entire piece. Okay, so the frame is all the way braced. All the welds are done. I welded the top and also the bottom. So there's a lot more to this kit. We still have to weld in all of this. So in order to mock up this bracing and make sure it's all in the right spot, we actually have to put the body back on the frame. So that will be our next step, is putting the body mounts on the frame, and then we're gonna get the body back on the frame and then get all the rest of this kit mocked up. And then the body will come off the frame again, and we will fully weld everything. Okay, so pulled everything out of the garage, cleaned it, and got the body all the way in the back because I'm gonna get ready and I'm gonna use my jack stands and jack up the body, get it off the body cart, slide the frame underneath, and then lower it down. But first, before we do that, we gotta do a little bit of prep on the frame. So I have a brand new body mount kit here that'll replace all of the factory body mounts. We're gonna get all of those on the frames in all of the holes that you see here. And then after that, we're gonna lift the body up, slide the frame underneath, and then lower the body down onto the frame for mock-up. Okay, so got the body jacked up. It is floating in the air right now, so I'm gonna take off the wood and then pull this car all the way outside, pull the frame back in, put it underneath, drop the body down. Okay, so after a couple mishaps, body is back on the frame and it is sitting so low. That is an absolutely perfect stance. Now the coilovers are at its lowest position, and the front, of course, is gonna drop down a lot with the weight of the motor, but I am absolutely loving the way that this is tucking back here. So we're definitely gonna have to go with a little bit wider tire, just so it fills up that tire gap a little bit. I am super happy with how this QA1 suspension looks. And even just looking underneath, it looks amazing back here. I love that look. So with some thicker tires, it's gonna make it look even better. But now that the body is back on the frame, I'm gonna get the frame pushed out. I got another project I'm gonna bring in over the weekend, and the body is gonna go right here. We're gonna keep working on it. We're gonna get that brace kit mocked all the way up. So the car did fall. Luckily, it didn't damage anything. It did bend this little bit right there, you can see just that little corner, but I'll be able to bend that out luckily. But that's why I got a little bit crazy. Got to be a little bit more careful lowering this thing down back on the frame. Man, but we definitely have come a long way from where we started. This is a completely new car. But that is probably going to be a wrap for today's video. I think we got enough done on the Chevelle. It is back on the frame, looking super good. I'm happy with how everything's coming out. So in the next video, we're going to finish up the frame bracing kit, and then we will reveal the motor that we're going to put in this. The transmission is on the way, so hopefully it will be here by the time I release the next video, and we'll be able to reveal the entire drivetrain that we're going to put in this thing. So thanks so much for watching this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.